This is Frank Islam, Chairman and CEO of FY Investment Group and your host of Washington Current Review, where we interview leading voices from business and politics that impact you, the viewer. Today, we are fortunate enough to have a guest, Ambassador Kapur, who served India very well as an ambassador. So he's going to tell us a little bit all about our foreign service. So thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for coming to our show. We appreciate that very much. So what's it life like being an active diplomat? What kind of challenges do you face, and how do you overcome those challenges?
Thank you very much for inviting me, Frank. I appreciate that sincerely. Working as a diplomat for your country is absolutely great, and it gives you a lot of opportunity to serve the interests of your country, to promote relations, friendships between your country and the other countries. And I have been working in this job now for 35 years. In different continents. I've worked in Africa and Tanzania, in Dar es Salaam. I've worked in Nepal and Kathmandu. I've worked in Southeast Asia and Cambodia. I've worked in Europe and France and Spain and the UK. I've worked in the USA. So it's been a very varied career. I started off by learning Spanish because that is one of the requirements in the job.
So they teach you Spanish in Delhi?
Well, you are supposed to get very good immersion in Spanish. So I was fortunate, I was studying Spanish in Spain.
Oh, very nice. That's the country that you need to learn from.
Yes.
Very well. Okay. So you were engaged, so you were ambassador to what other countries besides Tanzania and Spain, other part, you said South America also, you went there too?
Yes, you start off as a diplomat, working in different levels, as a third secretary, as a second secretary, as a first secretary, and then you go on to a counselor, then on to a minister, and then on to the ambassador.
So that's the ladder that you have to get to be in order for you to become an ambassador.
That's right, as a career diplomat.
Okay.
So since I was a career diplomat, I've gone through all those steps and then served as an ambassador in Southeast Asia and Cambodia. And served as an ambassador in South America and Chile, and served as a minister in Nepal, and counselor in the embassy in France.
It's kind of exciting.
Well, it is definitely one of the most rewarding jobs.
That's the best way to put it. Rewarding is a good word. Yeah.
In the, in amongst all the jobs that you can think of, and I had been dreaming of it as sort of a job that I would aspire for.
And you did.
And I was very fortunate because in India you have about 500,000 people appearing for the civil services.
So for the exam, which
for
is
the exams, IAS exams.
For the Indian Administrative Service, and then the Indian Foreign Service, correct?
That's right. And the number of people that they select normally is between 10 to 20.
So the competition is pretty tough.
Competition for the Foreign Service, it is very tough because the numbers are very small. And for all services, it's very tough because if you have big, number of 500,000 people appearing and trying to get it, and the numbers who are taken in are just a few hundred, it's not easy. But once you get in, it's the possibilities are enormous to serve your country.
Thank you very much for serving India. I'm sure the audience appreciates it, India appreciates it, and your family appreciates it. But I want to talk a little bit about, you're very much passionate about environment, as Asia, and in particular India, becomes a global economic power, what is that will be the impact in terms of the environment in that part of the world, in general Asia, in particular to India?
Environment is a very important aspect of the global the stage today.
You're absolutely right.
It's a topic which is going to impact upon all of us. And I've been working a lot on this issue, on this area, and I've been also discussing about the possibility of India being able to balance its economic growth and environmental sustainability. Because we are at that point of time in our history when we are poised for tremendous growth, and it's a big dilemma, green versus growth.
It is.
And how we are going to tackle this is going to be very important.
Well, it affects the people's lives also, because when the air is very toxic, you cannot breathe it. As a result, you can get a lot of disease and so on and so forth. People die very quickly because of this thing. Because of the environmental issues.
In our country today, the particulate matter is very heavy, very high, and very big. So you have a large number of studies being done as to how they are damaging the health of the people.
Yes.
To the extent that average life of the citizens living in the big cities is being reduced by 3 years.
Oh my goodness.
Now this is working totally
because
against
of the air,
because of the air that they're breathing, the pollution.
The pollution. It's very toxic.
The particulate matter is going into your lungs, into your
and
breathing
as a result,
system.
you can get a cancer also.
Well, all sorts of diseases, asthma, cancer.
You're absolutely right.
So you have to see how to bring that under control. And for India, it is very, very important because we have been at the forefront of environmental knowledge in the world in the past. If you see the Oriental wisdom, in the Atharva Veda of the 4 Vedas of India, there is a chapter which is called the Prithvi Sukta.
Okay, which talks about the environment.
Which talks about the environment, which talks about the respect for the environment,
yes.
which talks about how we have to protect it, preserve it, and go ahead with it. Now, environment is not something which is our sort of right. So it is the right of our future generations.
Do you believe the Indian government is taking it seriously, especially this Modi government,
well,
in terms of environment?
Yes, I think they are doing a great job because I was there in Delhi recently for a very big conference called the Reinvest Conference.
Okay.
Renewable Energy Investment Conference.
Yes.
And at that conference, all the leaders, including the Prime Minister, articulated the Indian position very, very clearly that environment is an issue, is the right of our future generations. And in India and in the Oriental wisdom, we are not used to consuming or degrading or destroying what does not belong to us. So the environment rightfully belongs to the future generations.
Very well said.
So I have
and everyone has the responsibility to make sure that we live in a country that is that we can breathe the fresh air also.
Yes,
everyone, every citizen has that responsibility.
And if we have had a tremendous amount of achievements on the economic sphere, on the social indices of life, where the lifespan has been going up since 1947 tremendously, and certainly now to be impacted negatively because of this issue. So his statement, the Prime Minister Modi's statement was very clear that we are going to work what is correct by our own conscience, what we think is right for the future of India. We are not under any pressure of any country or government to do what they think we have to do. We will do what we think we have to do, and which is work towards safeguarding the environment. So I am very, very optimistic, sure, convinced that we are going along the right path. Because earlier the argument was that for economic development, the Western countries had in the past been destroying or contributing to the carbon house emissions in a very significant way, and now we have the right to do the same and continue on the path for economic development. But the dilemma is green versus growth, and in my opinion, it's not green versus growth, it is growth with green.
Very well said.
So the two have to go together, and we have to find out new paths. We have to look at the past wisdom, of which there is plenty, to the extent that the Prithvi Sukta, which is there in the Atharva Veda, can be a vision document, a guiding document for the United Nations work on environment. We are going to be having a conference in the end of the year, in December, which is the Paris conference, which will be the very big conference, and India is going to be playing an important role in that. After that, we are planning a very big conference in Washington, D.C., called the Next Steps After Paris, which will be in May of 2016.
So about a year from now.
About a year from now. This is under the United Nations umbrella, with the University of Maryland, where the various...
where you work.
Where I work currently.
Which makes a lot of sense. I want to change a little bit your talk, Mr. Ambassador, about the strained relationship the United States with some of the Asian countries. I don't know which country you're talking about. What do you think of that, and how do we repair that relationship?
Well, the United States is a very important country for the world.
Of course.
And it has done so much good in the past, and it continues
to do so.
So much good currently, and it has to continue to do so for the future. Now, there are a lot of flashpoints in the world, and the US has been contributing its men, its materials, its resources, its entire, cash and kind for the last so many years to safeguard the interests of so many different countries and peoples in the world. So if I see today from the US perspective, the most important threats are fundamentalism and flashpoints in the South China Seas, in the East China Seas, clash over the island disputes, Taiwan, North Korea, Tibet. So to that extent, China is also, one of the countries which is involved in some of these disputes today.
Especially with the East China Sea and Tibet and North Korea.
So in the Asian theater,
right,
the US will have to see how to have a convergence of interests so that it does not go beyond acceptable limits. The situation and the problems which are there, and in that I think India has a very important role to play, because historically India has been a very benign actor.
But they're going to be active partner?
Well, that is where a person like Prime Minister Modi, who's taken over power last year, he's just completing 1 year.
Sure.
And I think the government has done a lot to display to the world that they are, very concerned, very active, very involved with the issues of the world. Unlike in the past when it was more an inward looking government. So currently I'm sure they will be an active partner, they will be an involved partner, they will be a useful partner, not only in the field of security, but also in the field of democracy and in development.
They're the largest democracy in the world.
We are the largest democracy in the world.
The United States is the oldest democracy in the world.
Yes, and together.
So we have a lot of shared interests and shared values.
Yes, we do have a lot of shared interests and shared values, but we have to see how we can work together.
I totally agree, and I think it is a desire of this administration's, and it is your desire, my desire as a community leader, that we need to strengthen and broaden our engagement with India. And we want India to become a global power and change the landscape of the world. That's our desire. But I do want to talk to you about, you mentioned about University of Maryland, and so how did you transition from an ambassador to a university, which is very different? And what's your goal and what you're trying to accomplish there? Tell me a little bit about that.
I have had a lot of interest in, contributing to academics and shaping young minds, in mentoring students and guiding the young people. So I've been doing that for quite some time, even in my earlier avatar of being a diplomat for 35 years. I had taught in Georgetown University for a year in 91, 92.
Is that right? Yeah.
And then I taught in Sorbonne University in
Which
Paris.
University?
Sorbonne.
In Paris.
Sorbonne.
Yeah, sure.
And in most of the countries that I've worked in, I've been talking to students, interacting with students all the time, giving a lot of talks and lectures and classes in Chile, whichever country I've worked in.
That's a very wonderful thing to do.
For me, after having served India and India's friends for the last 35 years, this is like a track 2 status now, where we will continue to support the Indian embassy here in Washington DC and the goals of the Indian government and the goals of the US government for world peace, for world progress. So I am very happy to be transitioning into academics now and working with the students and the faculty and professors in the areas of international security, international development, sustainable development, climate change, and of course another area of my interest has been connecting world heritage sites and civilizations.
Yes.
Recently we had a very big conference in South America and Chile, which I am the president of this organization.
Achha.
So this
I said a little bit in Hindi, which is very rare for me. But thank you very much for doing so. And so, what does it entail?
Here we are trying to bring greater awareness about other civilizations,
our history and heritage
of the world.
Of the world heritage. Very well said.
So a lot of experts are involved.
So how do we repair the Taj Mahal? Because it's all, when I went there in October and January, when I was with President Obama there, and he didn't go to Taj Mahal, but I happened to go there, it's all polluted and things like that. So, and that's the world's ancient heritage, and that's a very important part of who we are as a nation in India.
Yes, and that is also part of the impact of pollution and
yes.
climate. And there has been some effort already to protect the heritage through the UNESCO, and UNESCO is playing a very good role.
They're active participant?
They are very active participants. They are consultants, advisors, coordinators. They have this list of World Heritage Site monuments all over the world, tangible monuments, intangible heritage, music, culture, dance. So they are putting these together, and then they expect the countries to stick to minimum norms for preservation of these monuments.
Wonderful thing to do.
So we are bringing
That's
awareness.
our past.
So we are trying to bring greater awareness of the physical monuments also, and the intangible civilizational aspects which belong to centuries or millennia. So under that umbrella, we are trying to also bring greater awareness and greater dialogue between the different communities, between the different religions, between the different civilizations. So the title of the conference is Connecting World Heritage Sites and Civilizations, to bring together greater positivity in the environment. So that is one effort which is going on. We will also be talking about the strategic aspects between India, US and China, and how these three countries have to together play an important role for peace of the world. And besides all the other important players, it's not just these three. The whole, important, all the countries of the world have to contribute. So that will be the other effort which will be happening.
So this is the sort of your agenda, important agendas for this things that you're talking about, right? What was that again? The one you talked. What's this called?
Connecting World Heritage Sites and Civilizations. Now,
well
in this we have had, I have had a lot of personal involvement.
Oh.
Because when I was ambassador in Cambodia, we got involved with the restoration of one of the biggest monuments.
Yes.
Which is the biggest conservation project going on in the world. Now, in this monument, you have a lot of trees growing on the structure.
Okay.
So when you have trees growing on the structure, the traditional theory of conservation was that cut the trees to save the monument.
Which is wrong.
Well, which is wrong, and which took a lot of effort to, propagate that today the trees are as important as the monument.
Yes.
The argument was, once the trees fall, they create a lot of damage, they break the monument, they break the shrines,
they damage the soil,
they damage everything around it.
You're absolutely right.
And they are a danger to the visitors and the tourists.
You're absolutely right. They're also danger to the environment
so,
if you cut the trees.
Yes. So in one of the books which I've written on Cambodia, we propagated a different theory of conservation and preservation of monuments.
Wow.
Where we said, this is again green with growth, example of having development and preserving the environment. Where we said that if you preserve the trees today and you number the stones of the monuments and see where each stone is placed, so once the trees fall, you can again put together the monument. But by cutting the trees, you are destroying the beauty of the monument today. So that has been accepted by UNESCO and by a lot of the conservation agencies.
So is that the message that when they wanted to have a subway, a metro going to the Lodi Garden in India, and the architecture heritage people got involved, they said that's not we're not going to make that happen. Is that something they got from your book? And I thought it was a great idea though.
Well, they have got some ideas from the book, including how to bring back these old monuments, because in a lot of countries, the urban sprawl, the markets, the shops, the urbanization is encroaching upon the monumental space.
You're absolutely right.
So the beauty and the grandeur of these monuments is totally getting lost.
Yeah.
You see that in Bombay, you see that in Delhi, you see that in Thailand, in many cities, you see that in many countries.
But I would say to the audience that I just went to India in January. I went to Qutub Minar, I went to Humayun's tomb, I went to Lodi Garden, and I also went to Taj Mahal. These are our history, our heritage, and Indian government is committed and passionate to preserve and protect, to make sure the environment is not damaged, make sure the heritage it stands as a city and a hill. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for coming over here. We appreciated that, and thank you for your passion and commitment to what you're doing.
Just one point which, if you permit me to make.
Sure, by all means.
In the history of the world, I was reading an article in The Economist, which talked about the GDP contributed by different countries.
Yes.
And this was tracing out the last 2000 years.
Yes.
So they talked about the sources being the Economist, Angus Maddison, and the IMF.
Yes.
And in that they showed that for the first 1500 years, India was one of the biggest contributors of GDP to the world GDP.
India was, as a matter of fact, India was the most powerful nations.
And thereafter, it went down during the colonial period from a contribution of about 33% to 25% to less than 2% to almost 1%. Now again it is going up. It is showing as one of the 3 biggest economies on purchasing power parity terms already.
You're absolutely right.
And it is poised for growth, and I guess this is the right time for the world to join together with India.
And that's a great message to the audience. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for what you're doing for our country and for India. And that's a noble cause, and especially protecting the heritage and history of India. Thank you very much and this is